COVID, and we can all agree with that. Since COVID, things has gone up. When it comes to prices, they're not the same like it used to be before. I remember buying gas was not like $5 or $6, but now it is. And looking at these things, even though I enjoy the change that is happening, and I do believe that things are going to change in the future, I wanted to learn about how the future is going to change. And I wanted to learn how I can help others to also get this information and be able to save and be able to save for themselves, since a lot of the prizes are taking our money. Because of this, I decided to join an organization. It is a business that we help people save for the future. We help them to be able to learn about the things that are happening in the world and how they can also learn, how they can also move according to that. For this reason, what we do, the name of my company though is World Financial Group. And what we do is that we help people to save for the future, and we help them. For example, I personally wasn't thinking about when it comes to saving for when I retire, but now I do think about these things. And this is because my learning has put me into this place where I am able to retain information on a weekly basis, and I'm able to send those information to people, and I'm able to help them to also save for the future. This has been a benefit for me and for others because one, nobody is really going to teach us about what this world is, or what is going on in the world. And a lot of my classmates, or where I find myself, people don't know about how to save for themselves and how to think about the future, because a lot of people are scared after COVID. And I know that when it comes to even finding a place to live, it's also been hard. For me personally, I've been trying to find a place where I can I can rent so I can go to school. And that has been a tough decision for me because I'm not able to afford it. And in this business, I'm able to help people, and I'm able to teach them about how they can save and how they can also grow their money. This is the reason why I love what I do, and I'm also able to retain a lot of information. And I believe that the reason why I'm able to do this is because I started learning, and I wanted to use my learning to help others. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Our educational speech tonight is given by a gentleman that has been with the club for quite a few years now. He has a lovely daughter, Maggie, that is, how old is Maggie now? 5?
Yeah, she turned 5.
5, okay. Oh, time's flown, my goodness. Pierre is aspiring to be an area director. He is working. Did you get your job here in Riverside?
I'm going through the background screening right now. Everything's conditional on this background screening. I hope to hear back in the next few days.
Well, they can ask us and we'll vouch for you with no problem.
Thank you. I'm so nervous.
Educational speech on vocal variety. Let's give a big welcome to Pierre Auza.
Thank you so much, Madam Toastmaster. Can everyone see the screen right now in the share screen? Everyone see it? Excellent. Yeah. So good evening, Phonic Fury members and Speechcraft participants. Welcome back. It's my pleasure and privilege to give this presentation this evening on vocal variety, a key dimension of public speaking. This presentation has the following goals. First, I will introduce the elements of vocal variety. Toastmasters canonically lists 4 elements, and then there's one more mystery element that I personally think is crucial as well. Second, I'd like to give you some examples of vocal variety by taking a look at some line readings from famous movies, by analyzing the pace, the pitch, the volume, tone, and the mystery elements in these line readings. We can begin to understand how these elements enhance the delivery of those famous movie lines and make them so memorable. Lastly, I will suggest ways to use these 4 or 5 elements of vocal variety in your next speech. But before we discuss elements, we first need a working definition of what we mean by vocal variety. Here's what I've adapted from Toastmasters' own definition. Vocal variety is the use of the elements of vocal variety, like pace, pitch, volume, and tone, to enhance the delivery of any speech. So here are your 4 canonical plus 1 mystery elements of vocal variety. Let's start with pace. The speaker's pace is the speed at which they speak. You can say it fast or you can say it slow. Pitch is how high or how low the speaker's voice can go. And just as you can vary the pace and the pitch, you can vary the volume of your voice to emphasize words, phrases, or other sections of your speech. We often use loud volume to emphasize, but sometimes an unexpected whisper can have tremendous power. Of the 4 canonical elements, the squishiest, most touchy-feely, je ne sais quoi one is tone. And Toastmasters defines tone as the emotion behind the sound of your voice. If your emotional tone is excited or serious or frightened or determinedly encouraging, you introduce subtle changes to your voice that are not quite captured in the other 3 elements. But what's this last mystery element? I propose that another important element of vocal variety is the pauses that excellent public speakers employ in a deliberate manner in order to frame individual words and phrases. A judiciously placed pause, even a very subtle one, can create emphasis or contrast that supports your speech's messages and themes. So how do you judiciously employ these elements of vocal variety? Now, my suggestion is to take them and play around. Your voice is your mixing board. You adjust the elements the way you fiddle with the little sliders, because I don't think there is any one specific way that is correct for all speakers and for all speeches. But as you gain speaking experience, you will find your own voice. And part of that process is experimenting with these 5 elements here. So it's one thing to define these elements of vocal variety. It's another thing entirely to illustrate how they work. Now, for my money, I think the most expedient way to do this is by examining famous movie lines. Actors do line reading exercises, and depending on the choices an actor makes on pace, pitch, volume, tone, and pauses, the same line can convey different meanings. When we think of iconic movie lines, it's a specific line reading that gives that line life, a specific configuration of pace, pitch, volume, tone, and pauses. Now, to that end, 3 of the examples that I've chosen here are lines said multiple times in that movie. You can go watch that. You can hear the variation of vocal variety elements on the various repetitions of that line. And that will give you a sense of the effect that varying these elements has on the messages and the themes of those movies. To start off, just look at how effectively Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy communicates with just the phrase, "I am Groot." Who here's seen these movies? Any of them. There's one out right now. So yeah, body language is a key dimension of Groot's communication style, but Groot's delivery of "I am Groot," "I am Groot," "I am Groot," that line varies in pace, pitch, volume, and tone, and its uses of pauses throughout the movies, because Vin Diesel is just this master of line reading. Then there's that one scene from Taxi Driver. You talking to me? You talking to me? Now, in that scene, Robert De Niro says that iconic line multiple times. On each repeat, he plays around with the pace, where he puts the pauses, but generally there's a bit of a raised pitch on the final me for emphasis. In terms of volume, Robert De Niro actually keeps the volume pretty soft, but he makes up for it with this intensity, with this menacing tone in his voice, because he's trying on that persona. Now, in the 2009 Hindi film Three Idiots, Amir Khan's character has this guiding principle through the ups and downs of that film. However big the problem is, tell your heart, all is well. Now, in this particular scene, the key phrase, all is well, is actually spoken in English, and then the rest of the line is actually in Hindi. But as Amir Khan repeats this phrase throughout the movie, Amir Khan also varies the pace, the pitch, the volume, and the use of pauses. I mean, being Bollywood, this line is even repeated multiple times in song form. But the constant here is the emotion conveyed. It is this determined encouragement, is the emotion that they harp on. It's a key theme in that movie, if you've seen it. Now, for my last example, I want to use a key line from last year's Academy Award winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once, shortened to EEAAO. Now, this is perhaps the most iconic line in that movie. Ke Huy Quan delivered it in Mandarin here on the left. Now, in the middle, these are the official subtitles in the movie, and then over here on the right is this closer literal translation that I found. This line, it's only spoken once in the movie. Now, during that line, the pace is slow, the volume used is soft, and the pitch is like a regular, naturally pitched conversation, or at least as naturally pitched as any serious conversation about heartbreak can be. But to me, I particularly love the placement of pauses in this line, here marked with ellipses. The literal translation here on the right has those pauses and better reflects the pauses in the original Mandarin. In the official subtitles, it seems a bit more spoken through without those impactful pauses. And so pauses become a key element in vocal variety. So now that we have examples, what suggestions do I have for you? First of all, listen to more examples. Study public speakers here at Phonic Fury. Study public speakers online. Go watch how the actors use the 5 elements in those 4 movies that I suggested. Then go rewatch your favorite movie lines with now your newly trained ear for those 5 elements of vocal variety. Now for your next speech, first break it down structurally. Where are the sections? Where are the key phrases in those sections? In each section of your speech, what are your baseline pace, pitch, volume, and tone? Stay aware of how you change these elements from section to section. Maybe your baseline pace gets faster or slower. Maybe you go up or you go down in pitch, or you get louder, or you get softer in volume. You might decide you need to change in emotional tone. Then consider how you can use pauses to separate or transition between sections. For key phrases within each section, decide how you want to contrast the pace, pitch, volume, and tone against the rest of the section as a whole. Also, go word by word, because sometimes you can control the message you're conveying by adding subtle pauses between words, or by changing the pace, pitch, volume, and tone from word to word. If you repeat key phrases, you don't have to say that phrase the same way each time. At each repetition, changes in pace, pitch, volume, tone, and pauses can help you shed light on your speech's themes or messages from all these various angles. So keep these elements of vocal variety in mind. On your coming speeches, I hope to hear you experiment with them. I will forward a PDF of this presentation along with the Toastmasters resources that Daryl sent me, which were the basis of this presentation. Thank you for this privilege, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Pierre. Excellent job. I'm sure the speech crafters will enjoy getting your PDF because that'll really help them. Now we come to the fun time, the table topics time. And to lead us in that is a gentleman that's been with us, just about a year now. He enjoys the outdoors and hiking and camping. He has 2 sons and a lovely wife and lives in Riverside. Let's give a big welcome to Benjamin Moore.
Thank you, Madam Postmaster. There is so much to talk about with tonight's theme of hobbies. I think we could have great meetings for the rest of the year if we stayed on this topic by itself. I started thinking about this and I didn't really know where to start with hobbies because I can't list them all. They're innumerable. So I went to the beginning. The idea of hobbies stretches all the way back to antiquity. Bear with me for a second. Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon from the 6th century BC, and his daughter were avid antiquarians. They would search out and restore more ancient temples. His daughter, Enegaldi Nana, would display her artifacts in her private quarters, effectively creating one of the first known museums. Augustus Caesar collected ancient gold coins. I have a handful of silver myself. Even here, among everyone here, I've heard of card playing, spoon collecting, although I didn't know you did too, and piracy as a hobby. My wife likes to knit, and she makes paper flowers. 3 corners of my house and a good part of my garage are all dedicated to supplies. And that's some very valuable real estate that her hobbies are taking up. I have a friend who's spent close to $100,000 over his life on musical equipment. So my first question is, what hobby have you or someone you've known spent way too much money on? Dan. Yes, sir.
I do not even know where to start on how much money I've spent on my various hobbies. One of them I kind of got myself out of. I did buy a boat, had fun with the boat, then sold the boat. Definitely 2 of the greatest days of my life, filled with a whole lot of paying money for a whole lot of stuff that I shouldn't have. My current obsession seems to be with knives. I love collecting knives. I have got a collection of bizarre and crazy folding knives, pocket knives, and my wife even allowed me to change the knives in the kitchen. What a crazy idea that was. But I found out when you pay for very expensive kitchen knives, they cut everything. Fingers, yes, fingers, hands. I had to learn whole new ways of washing these knives because apparently my old set, my 30-year-old kitchen knife set, I mean, you could dull them on butter. So currently I am collecting knives. I do really enjoy them. I've even got a crazy one at home. Thought I had a crazy one with me, but it's not. It's the most unique knife I've ever seen. It's a folding knife, but it doesn't fold. So we'll just leave that at that and say I'm probably going to wind up in debt over knives and swords and other various facts, because I found out most illegal knives are only illegal if you're outside your house with them. Like double-edged daggers, highly illegal to carry around, perfectly legal in a collection. Go figure. Apparently the knife lawmakers are even crazier than the gun lawmakers. Back to you.
Thank you, Dan. My favorite knife is a butterfly knife. They are a lot of fun to play with, but they seem so impractical. If you ever had to pull one out,
Yeah,
probably throw it over your shoulder.
which is why I don't understand why they're illegal.
I agree. I've experienced a hobby becoming a priority at the expense of more meaningful activities. So my next question is, have you ever seen a hobby take over somebody's life? And this will go to Wendy.
Have I ever thought about saving someone's life?
I'm sorry, no. Have you ever seen a hobby take over somebody's life?
Hobby to take over someone's life. I think, yeah. My brother loves to play games. And the games that he plays, I heard it's called Fortnite. I don't know anything about that game. All that I see is a cartoon, or I don't even know what that figure is. Just running around and then shooting and hitting stuff and then breaking it. And for some reason, the whole screen is just blue and everything is blue. And I don't really understand, but my brother can just play this all day from morning to evening, unless he has to eat, and then he will stop and eat. Otherwise, he can just keep playing. And it's just funny because this figure is just running around. I don't understand what it's particularly doing because there's no one to be fighting. It's just running and then it stops and then it hits something and run. I don't even understand how they win in that game. And when I do ask him, he doesn't even answer. And when he plays with his friend on the headphones, they will be talking, but I don't see his friend on the game. And just everything to me is just, I'm just tired of him just sitting down for so long and playing that game every single day, unless he has been called to eat. And I even wonder if he doesn't get tired. I actually don't think he gets tired. And it will be very interesting for me to find out what that game is about and why just people are so obsessed with that game. So yeah, that is the hobby that I've seen taking over my brother's life.
All right.
Excellent. Funny you should mention Fortnite. I've seen the same thing happen to several other people. Myself, I don't really get it either. I agree with you. It does seem a little too cartoony without any objectives, but can't argue with what people like, I suppose. I've suffered through some conversations where people insisted that I indulge in hobbies that I simply could not afford. I want to know, with that in mind, I want to know what some hobbies that are fun, that are also accessible on a budget. Damika.
Can you repeat? Actually, I was not.
Sure. Would you like to talk about some hobbies that are fun on a budget?
Yes, of course. Because one of the fun hobbies I would do is to travel, actually travel with my wife and my family. So the fun I get sometimes because they enjoy that vacation. So that they are actually, when they have fun, I really enjoy how they are having that fun. Sometimes it goes excess of my budget as well. But I really like to see how they enjoy the vacation and how they get that fun. So maybe it's a hotel stay or traveling to other country or going to a theme park or whatever the things. If they wants to go there and if they are really asking me to go for that vacation, I will go irrespective of the budget I have to bear. So I really enjoying when they are having that fun, even if it goes beyond my budget as well. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Devika. Those are very fun things to do, and honestly, I've got a budget for all of those too. My favorite observation on hobbies is that everyone should have 3 hobbies. One for artistic expression, another one for exercise and camaraderie, and a third that you'd like to make money on. What hobbies of yours would you like to make money on? Bond.
Thank you. My life. Thank you. So I'm starting now. Thank you so much. I'm Mr. Tip Topic Master. I'm so glad you asked this question. I do have exactly the same categories about the hobbies. I do exercise regularly, but I do that alone in my garage for the last few years. Before that, I was going to the gym and have the camaraderie, but not anymore. And for the artist part, I read a lot. For the third part, which I have been implementing for quite some time, but far away from being successful, which is about the writing. I registered for the payment program at the, I'm not sure if you heard about this program site, medium.com. I tried to write there and register for the payment program. I try to be honest. Actually, it's not a successful story. The highest monthly payment was about $11. That is the highest one. Now, of course, as compared to all those efforts, the nights, checking all those contents and got the story put up, it's almost nothing. It's not worth doing that. But I was planning on to earn some money from that. But something you have to try. And you can't realize how meaningful or how hard it is and how much effort you should put in until you really start that. I was taking that easy. I thought that I just get there and make some money. But seems it's a long, long way to go. But I'm so glad I have come up with this as one of my fixations and as one of my hobbies, and I still keep writing. Maybe the dream of making money is not so close to me, but this hobby I will keep for the rest of my life. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bond. $11. You're doing quite a bit better than a lot of writers I know.
You spend a lot of time.
I had a friend who enjoyed drinking whiskey as a hobby. He could detect the flavors and the scents and pull out the notes of different kinds of whiskey. And he got me into it too. I tried it, and I honestly could not find the rose hips scent in whiskey. I did find the hangovers. This is not my type of hobby. But what stood out is his appreciation of the subtlety. So my question is, what are the subtle details of your hobby that you enjoy that most people won't understand? Becky.
Oh, that's a tough question. You know, we need to ask Jack a question. Oh, could you repeat the question?
Certainly. What are the subtle details that you enjoy in your hobby that most people probably wouldn't understand?
That's a tough one.
Well, some of the subtle details in my spoon collecting
I understand that.
are that I pick what I like. A lot of times I don't have a choice because other people buy spoons for me, but they always seem to buy a good one. Subtleties in my spoon collecting that other people wouldn't know. Well, the biggest subtlety is the memory of where I was when I bought the spoon, what country I was in, what were the people like. And of course, unless you're there, you wouldn't really know that. I do have a fixation on my spoons. I have a box full that I have to put up on the wall still. But first I have to find wall space. And that's hard in a little one bedroom that I have. Tough question, Ben. I'll get back at you for this.
Thank you, Becky. I think you answer the question without answering it when you're talking about the memories that each of the spoons brings back, where most people might just see a wall of spoons. There's just more in each individual one that is subtle to you that we wouldn't really understand. My last question for tonight is basically, what hobby have you fixated on lately? Or what is your fixation lately? Since we all have hobbies and they all often come and go, I'd like to know what your most current, most favorite hobby is for right now. Pierre.
Thank you so much, Mr. Table Topics Master. As far as hobbies, there's one particular one I've been getting a bit into lately. So my family, when they meet up during the holidays, especially during Christmas and New Year's, being a Filipino family, it means we do quite a bit of karaoke. And so one of the nice things about recent technological developments in karaoke is that a whole bunch of our karaoke now is basically just on YouTube. You go find a YouTube video of karaoke and then you just sing it from there. You don't need so many fancy machines anymore the way you used to need. And so right now, the songs that I've just kind of been practicing and seeking karaoke tracks for are those belonging to the Japanese city pop genre. It's a genre that was contemporaneous with disco and soul through the late 70s, through the 80s, and a lot of it sounds really great. It has a very nostalgic sound to it, and it's fun to just learn a new song in different languages. There also is this video game called the Yakuza series of video games. And in that game, they have a karaoke mini game, but people have gone and made actual karaoke videos of karaoke tracks in Yakuza. So I've been learning Baka Mitai, and I've been learning 24 Hours Cinderella, and a bunch of the often really hilarious karaoke songs that are in that game. So right now I'm just picking up a whole bunch of Japanese karaoke. That's my current hobby fixation. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Pierre. I did not have that one written down. I am so glad I asked that to you. I don't even know where to start. You're the perfect person to answer that. And I've been listening to 1970s and 80s Japanese pop music lately too. For our real last question of the evening, is the other side of this. We all have hobbies that have come and go, but what's one hobby that you've carried ever since your earliest days, possibly childhood, that you may or may not be participating in, but it's still a part of your life? And I'd like to ask you this, Jack.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, for asking this question. I think one of the hobbies that's been along with me would probably go out for a hike. Going out for a hike, just to fix my grammar, because since I was very little, I used to go out with my parents, co-worker, and family members. We go to more countryside, more rural area to go out for a hike, because we usually live in the more developed urban, or on the other hand, boring area. And I always found those hikes refreshing, enjoyable, because I did not have to care about schoolwork. I did not have to care about the assignments that the teacher gave it to me the day before, or etc. And now I enjoy it because I enjoy going on a hike with friends. I enjoy breathing the fresh air of the countryside. And I also enjoy going outside because it can reduce a lot of unnecessary stress and a lot of just uncontrollable thoughts that's been popping up in my head. And I believe that a lot of other people are also bothered by a lot of those thoughts. However, just looking at the mountains, just looking at the trees, just looking at the beautiful nature that's surrounding us, we can realize that a lot of times there isn't that much to worry about. So that's why I really appreciate hiking throughout my life. So that's my answer, and I'll return the conduct back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Jack. One saying that's been resonating with me a lot lately is "go touch grass," and I believe it is speaking to what you're talking about, getting back to nature, slowing things down, and really appreciating your surroundings. That was my last question for tonight, and I'd like to turn conduct over to the timers report.
Yeah. There you go. All speakers are qualified. First speaker then talk about his expensive hobbies, which is knife connection. That's interesting. He spoke 1 minute, 47 seconds. Wendy talked about some hobbies that she knew taking over somebody's life. That's interesting. 1 minute, 56 seconds. Demika talked about some hobbies that is fun, but also on a budget. He used 1 minute, 8 seconds. Found myself talking about some hobbies we attempted to make money, which not successful. 2 minutes, 5 seconds. Becky talked about some subtle details about one of her hobbies, which people don't understand that. He spoke just 1 minute and 1 second, right on time. Pierre talked about some most recent hobbies that he has developed. Karaoke, that's interesting, kind of old stuff being revived, right? This kind of 30 years ago from the country where I came from. That's 2 minutes, 7 seconds. Jack talked about some hobbies that he enjoyed throughout all the time. Go out to hike. Interesting. I didn't know that part, but he spoke 1 minute, 55 seconds.
Okay.
Everyone is qualified. Please vote. Thank you. And back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Bond, for that succinct report. And thank you, Benjamin. Those were good questions, except for mine. But just wait. Our regular speaker tonight is a young lady that's been with the club for as long as Daryl and I have revived the club, and that's been well over 25 years. She's been in Toastmasters over 35 years. She loves the people, and she loves all kinds of creatures. And if you don't think she does, watch when she goes and talks to the gophers. She loves her family, travel, and cards. Her title is What Comes from Nature is Family. 5 to 7 minutes, Mr. Timer. What Comes from Nature is Family. Let's give a big welcome to Marianne Zeller.
How many of you had different pets when you were a kid? And how many of you have pets today of all kinds? Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. When I was a kid growing up in a small town called Houston, my mom and I had a dog, Toodles, and a cat, Baby. We lived by a pond. My mother would always say, you don't go near the pond because there's snakes and everything else down there. What she didn't realize was that I had found a little grass snake. I was only 8 years old at the time, but I kept that little grass snake on the side of the house. And I nourished it and fed it for at least a year. But then my mother married my stepdad and we moved to the farm. And I made a whole different style of my life because my stepdad said, all right, you want to be in 4-H. So when the first calf is born, the calf will be yours. And I got the calf and I had to take care of it and I had to nourish it. Then a new baby lamb came in and I got the baby lamb. And again, it gave me more work to do, take care of my baby lamb and my baby cat. I enjoy this because it was a different kind of way of life for me, besides dogs and cats. But then we'd have like 200-300 baby chickens because we raised chickens, of course, to sell, to be, cooked for people to eat. Which if I known that at that time, I would have never helped raise the baby chickens. But I would have to take care of the ones that were kind of fragile. And I learned to love them. I'd sit and hold them in my lap and I'd talk to them. And it was delightful to be sitting outside under the sun and in the grass with these baby chickens. But gradually, I learned to love all these animals and they became my pets, they became my family. It was close to my graduation in high school. Our house burned down. So we had to move to another house. And then I graduated. I decided, you know what? I cannot keep all my pets, even though they would be okay on the farm. And I left home. I met my G.I. Joe and got married and started traveling. And for a long time then, I didn't have any pets until our kids were born. Again, because we were in the military, we really didn't want too many pets because it's hard for them to be transferred and you never knew where you were going to be. But once our kids got bigger, I wanted them to have pets because I think they need to learn to love them and respect and know how to take care of them. So as the boys got bigger, they got hamsters. Then we'd get a tank of fish because these are little creatures that when you go, you can at least give them up and you're not breaking your heart like a cat or a dog. Gradually over the years, when we were stationed in Utah at Hill Air Force Base, we did have a dog and a cat. And we were there for 4 years, so that helped. But Gerald was up in the mountains helping the church build a cabin. And we got our orders to go. But he'd take our dog up with him. And the people up there enjoyed the dog. And we knew we couldn't really want to take it when we went overseas to Guam. So the family said we would take the dog. And I said, as long as you love him and take care of him, that's okay with me. We went to Guam and we took our cat with us. And it was in quarantine for 6 months. When we came back to the States, we brought our cat back. But while over in Guam, we had a lot of loony cats that I would feed and take care of. Then we came back here and we came to Norton Air Force Base. Still no more pets except our cat. Then we retired out here in Corona. I thought, good, now we're settled down in one spot and I can have some pets. But as my daughter told me, Mom, You like bees to honey, you get them all. And I did. In our backyard, I would have possums, I would have coyotes, I would have rabbits, I would have every kind of creature you could think of. And believe it or not, we did get a lot of dogs and we did have cats. In fact, today I have 7 cats. My granddaughter lived with us. She inherited a African tortoise. It was a baby, but now it's 185 pounds. He lives in our backyard. Before we went to South Carolina this summer, we ended up having a peacock come into our backyard. We thought, okay, it's not going to last. It's going to go bye-bye. Instead, when we came back, it was still in our backyard. So now we have a peacock. We have a tortoise. My neighbor said, guess what? There's coyotes. I went, great. Just what I need is a coyote. My daughter said, Mom, you're like a bee with honey. You get them all. Well, besides having all these pets over the years, which I love, besides 2-legged creatures, I do like them too, of course. Do you think I've had my share? Yes, it's been an adventure. I loved every one of the creatures that's been in my backyard, including a skunk that sat on our front porch one night. I talked to it. We have 3 baby bunnies that sit in our front yard, and I feed them carrots every morning. So what comes next? It depends on what lands in my backyard. Who knows? Thank you, ma'am.
Very good. Good job. Could we have a timer's report on all the speakers, please?
Yes, Madam Master. Timers report for the Speechcraft session. Speechcraft speaker, we have 1 speaker, Wendy. She spoke for 4 minutes, 4 seconds, right on time.
Right on time, yeah.
Educational speaker, Pierre. He asked for 8 to 10 minutes. He spoke for 10 minutes, 7 seconds. Also qualified. Regular speaker, Marianne. He asked for 5 to 7. He spoke for 5 minutes, 57 seconds. So
right.
all speakers are qualified.
Excellent. Thank you, Vaughn.
Welcome.
Please vote for best speaker. If you're on Zoom, send your vote in a private chat to Daryl. If you're in the room, Mary Ann's coming around and collecting the ballots. Now we come to the evaluation portion. That's where the speakers get the feedback to learn and grow from. To lead us in that is our resident pirate, magician, jokester. You name it, he's done it all. Let's give a big welcome to Dan Schrock.
Evaluations, I believe, are the most important thing that we do learn inside of Toastmasters. And I have seen the difference between people who've given evaluations and people who haven't. I was a governor in another area once, and they had a club that they have this one guy loved to give speeches every single night that they met. Every night they met. And I saw him, and I went back 6 months later, and he was still speaking. And I went back a year later, and he was still speaking, and he was still making the exact same mess ups and mistakes. And so I asked the club president, how come this particular person is not improving on his speeches? And they said, well, he doesn't like doing evaluations, so he's never done one. And I told him, you need to get him to do some evaluations because he's making the exact same mistakes every single time he gets up there. He not only doesn't do evaluations, he doesn't listen to them. So with that being said, our first evaluator tonight will be Benjamin evaluating Wendy's speech. So please come on up, Benjamin.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. And thank you for that introduction into this segment. I think you nailed it perfect, especially for Wendy's speech. You really can't teach you really don't know something until you try to teach it. Wendy, this was a fantastic speech. It really resonated with me. I liked it a lot. I too like to learn, and I also like sharing that knowledge. Not so sure that people like hearing it, but that's their problem, not mine. The first sentence started off with a bit of a false start. Just pointing that out, that's not a problem. You spoke about how you love to learn and you love to teach what you learn. I think that goes exactly to what Dan was saying, in that when you learn something, you teach it and then you learn it better. You want to learn how the world changes, and you want to learn how to help others. Those are both very big ambitions. And you want to teach others to save the future. And I personally think that's one of the highest callings a person could have, perhaps outside of being a doctor, but it's right up there. Helping people learn about financial responsibility is one of the greatest contributions to society, because a lot of people feel lost and there's not a lot of direction with things like financial stability. I believe this was your first speech that you've given with this club on Zoom. And so there's a few other details that I'd like to point out as far as giving a speech on Zoom or over the internet. I would suggest sitting back from the camera just a little bit. When you're up here and in person, we do see your gestures. We see your body language, and you convey a lot of information to us through nonverbal communication. But across Zoom, that's so much more difficult. And you've seen a few people get very, very close, and then maybe too far. You might want to find a sweet spot so that we can see some hand gestures, some body language. So that's my big suggestion for this speech tonight. I really like the topic. Again, it resonated with me. And this is a very good speech. And we really appreciated that you shared your passion and how you like to help people. With the idea of Zoom, and I believe we talked about it a few other times, take that into account. There's also a chance to enunciate a little bit clearer because it's a little difficult to hear across Zoom. But those are minor details. I think you can recover from that. And I very much encourage you to continue practicing your public speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Next, we have one of our members who had the already best introduction that we could ever wish for tonight, so I'm not going to try and top that. Please welcome Becky to evaluate Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Pierre. Pierre, that was one of the better educational speeches I have heard to date. I liked how you took the information that Toastmasters International gave you, or Daryl sent it to you, and you made it your own. And that really came across quite nicely. You had very good facial expressions. You mostly used one hand, and it was that one, your left hand. Yeah, that one. I felt that with this type of speech, since it was due to vocal, you really didn't need gestures. But it seemed you had a lot of them, and they were, to me, not disturbing. What's the word? Distracting, yeah, at times. I liked your examples. You had very good examples. I liked how you listed the goals and the elements. And the mystery one, pauses. We don't think about pauses in vocal variety, but you're right, it's very important. You were very enthusiastic. You had excellent vocal variety. There were times when I felt you spoke real fast, but then you slowed down. Your purpose was to inform us, and you did that quite nicely. I think this is one of your better speeches, Pierre. Thank you for sharing it, Mr. General Evaluator.
And our last evaluator of the evening will be Jack, evaluating Mary Ann's speech. Jack.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for introducing me, our general evaluator, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and especially our speaker, Mary Ann. I really enjoyed listening to your speech, not only this one, but all the other previous speech you were given, and I would like to appreciate you for always delivering us some beautiful stories throughout your life. And again, this is another really beautiful speech, and forgive me for using too generic of a word, beautiful, but I think your speech is simply very smooth, very straightforward, yet makes people relate to your life story a lot, and it makes people relate to enjoy, or to, I would say sometimes maybe a little bit envious toward your state of mind a lot of times, because you talk about how you're keeping a grass snake secretly for a year, and I thought it was a really interesting and really funny little detail to add. And I believe that in specifically speeches about your past experiences, adding some minor personal anecdotal details really helped enhancing your speech's overall interest, and the overall makes the speech more dramatic. So I think that it is another really brilliant speech that you've given about your life story, especially regarding pets. And that is, I believe, another great point you've always maintained while giving speeches, is that despite you tell a range of different stories that happen different times, you were always able to connect those stories to a theme, and maintaining on that theme throughout your speech. And I also appreciate that you're able to give out a message in the end, which I agree is that younger people, especially like me, need to have the ability to take care of a pet, to take care of maybe some pets, and then they will develop the ability to take care of others and take care of themselves. And I always appreciate, Marianne, you to give us some advice or some values that you've learned, and for us to follow as a model, and just for us to learn how to live a better life. And I really appreciate Marianne. So I think I don't really have any suggestions on the speech, maybe other than increasing some vocal dramaticality, because you were telling some little anecdotal stories about, keeping a snake or going near the pond or something like that. But overall, I really enjoyed listening to your speech. So thank you. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for my general evaluation of our meeting. We did start off a couple minutes late, but it was still right on time. We were kind of allowing more people to arrive. Unfortunately, more people didn't arrive. But we got ahead with our meeting. We set things into forward. We got our helpers all assigned so that everybody knew what they were doing. They introduced themselves, and we got right into, I believe, we got right into some of the speeches. Yes, we did. And again, we had a couple speakers who were not here. but we made the best of it, and the speeches that we did have here tonight were absolutely amazing speeches. I also enjoyed the table topics on hobbies. It seemed nobody really had a fixation on any of their hobbies except maybe me, which I probably have on that, and guitars. I digress. But we also did not have a fixation on the word of the day, which was also kind of bad. Or, okay, I got kind of twice already, which was also bad that none of us could use fixation in a speech, especially on a day about hobbies. It's the ultimate time to be fixated. The questions were great. The answers were absolutely wonderful. Then we had another speech by Mary Ann, and that's when we moved into the evaluations. I think all of our evaluators did a great job. I liked hearing words like "I liked." It resonated with me. This is what I saw. This is what I heard. I love hearing those during an evaluation, and all of our evaluators used those. And all of them gave good suggestions too, especially with the Zoom aspect, which is still kind of taking a lot of getting used to, even though we've been doing it for a while. It's still on the border of weird. But I did like the suggestions about, moving and finding that sweet spot to stand. That does work out really well. One item that I think would also help with our people who are on Zoom would be to set the computer to speaker, so that when the person's speaking, just their picture goes up onto the screen. That way we can see them rather than trying to figure out, oh wait, which one is it? Because we have 6 frames up there. We're only seeing 1/6 of what we could be seeing of the speaker. If we put them to the large, we'll probably get a lot more body movement and body language that we're not seeing because they're so small. That would be my one suggestion for tonight as a general evaluator. And that concludes my evaluation of the evening, short and sweet, because now we need to hear from our office or our helpers for tonight. So first, we need the counters report from the meeting.